All doing fantastic. My name is Ismael Perez, author of our Cosmic Origin, Galactic Historian, Cosmic Ambassador, and today we have a special interview. But before we get to our special interview, which I've been telling you guys about, I'm sure you guys are excited about this. Let me go ahead and first check to make sure that I'm live on my YouTube. One second. Let's see. It's not showing that I'm live. Am I live? Oh boy. Let's see. One second. All right. I am not live. Okay. Well, that's weird. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Oh, yes, I am live. Hi, guys. Okay, so let me go ahead and take down the other chat because I'm actually using Restream. Hi, everyone. How is everyone doing? Thank you so much for jumping on. Let's see. I am live. Awesome. How do you delete this? One second, guys. I have Laura Eisenhower waiting to come on, so if you guys can give me a moment here, I'm going to go ahead and bring her on. All right. Okay. So it does say that I am live. How's everyone doing? I want to welcome everyone to tonight's live. It's going to be a special one. I have Laura Eisenhower waiting to come on. Thank you so much for being here. For those that don't know me, I'm Ismael Perez, the author of our Cosmic Origin, Cosmic Ambassador, Galactic Historian, and I am excited to be here once again on a Saturday Night Live to do a live with the most awakened people on the planet who are light years ahead in this, disclosure awakening movement. So I just wanted to thank each and every single one of you guys for being here. Now, before I let Laura in, Laura Eisenhower is actually waiting in the waiting room. I would like to give a day in history, as today is May 2nd. The 2nd of May, 2024, in 1956, the Moroccans declare their independency. The Moroccans declare their independency today. I love independency, right? Independency is the reason why our founding fathers did what they did in the establishment of our constitutional republic. And I am all for independency. I'm for national sovereignty and as well as individual sovereignty. And that's what we're fighting for, right? We're fighting for individual freedom, where we become our own government unto ourselves and less ruled by others, where we step into our full sovereignty and become self-reliant, self-government. Now, I also want to point out that before I bring Laura Eisenhower on, I do want to let everyone know that I will be posting my transmissions. I had the opportunity to edit my video regarding my transmissions from the Blue Avians, whose original name was the Carians. Okay, they were originally called the Carians, which are the bird race that assisted Prime Creator Source in the development of the Stargates, believe it or not, here in our universe. But I also wanted to say that that video is coming up in the next week, so stay tuned for that. And oh yes, my website, our cosmicorigin.com is it's been up since yesterday. I know a lot of you have been asking about my courses. My courses are mind-blowing, guys. It is the cosmic knowledge. All right. So if you guys, I will go ahead and put the link to my website for those that are interested in taking my courses. Now, this is the thing, guys. All right. I'm going solo, right? I'm no longer with the Mystic Arts. So it's just going to be me and all of my information. Now, I'm only going to take 20 students this month, okay? And the reason being is because I want to give each and every single one of you personal time, all right? Personal time. And of course, it's going to be interactive, right? It's not just me lecturing. Yes, I'm going to be lecturing, but it's also going to be very intimate and very interactive. So with that in mind, let's bring our special guest today. Laura Eisenhower is in the house. Hi, Laura. Hold on one second. I can't. Are you there? Oops.
Hey there. Yes, I am.
I just took me off. 1 second. Oh, wait. No, I took you off. Let's see. How do you bring both?
You just had it.
Oh, I did. 1 second. Okay, guys, bear with me. As you know, I am tech illiterate. How do you bring both? Oh, there we go. Figured it out. See, everyone here knows that I am, when it comes to technology, it's over my head. Me and technology never really, harmonized, you can say. And that explains why I believe in an organic technology, a living technology, which is what we are. But before I ask you the questions, Laura, thank you for being here first and foremost. I know that your time is valuable as you are a beautiful being of light out there pushing for truth, knowledge, and of course, the restoration of human sovereignty. And that's why I believe a lot of people love who you are. You know, you're fighting for freedom. So I just wanted to give you guys a brief bio on who she is. So Laura Eisenhower is a researcher, author, and astrologer. She is an internationally acclaimed speaker who had presented her work worldwide. She's the great granddaughter of President David Eisenhower and has revealed exopolitical information about his administration that has been largely held in secrecy. She is considered by many to be one of North America's leading researchers and experts on health, exopolitics, alchemy. I love the alchemy stuff. Metaphysics, astrology, and galactic history. Wow, Laura, you are speaking my language. I love it. Laura works to free us from the 3D holographic time loop, also known as the false archonic system and military-industrial complex, which is, of course, the SSP group that is being run by the cabal. With no further ado, Laura, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's so great to be here. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's one great granddaughter. And, your galactic history is really mind-blowing. I mean, so I just can't wait for where our conversation is going to go. So thank you for that great intro. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Now, before we go into the deep stuff, being the great-granddaughter of one of America's presidents, who was not just any president, but I mean, I personally believe, based on my knowledge and research and my downloads, based on my galactic family, that he was the one who initiated the plan with Bailey and Thor. So before we get to that part, before we get to how he was the original White Hat, well, reinstating the plan of the White Hats, of course, there is a history to the White Hats that we could actually trace back to the Knights Templars and their fight for freedom during the dark medieval ages and so on and so forth. But before we get to that, I just wanted to ask you a few questions regarding your family's legacy. So can you share a favorite memory or story about your grandfather, President Eisenhower, that gives us insight into his personality beyond the public persona?
Oh, gosh. Well, I didn't meet him in person. He was very close to me in spirit, though, since I was a young child. I was able to meet Mamie, my great-grandmother, when she was at the Gettysburg Farm on her deathbed when I was about 4 years old. And there's just so much. I don't even know where to begin. So many stories that I've heard from my mom and my aunts and uncles, and just so much that I feel as a familiarity within my own soul about what kind of person, he really is. He was such a family man and just a great sense of humor. And I mean, I just can't imagine his just being him, but I can to a certain degree. I heard stories that when he was a child, he was getting so many downloads that he would hit his head against a tree. And I remember when I was young, I sort of did something similar. I was just like, like too much is coming in, like so much is coming in, like my mission is being revealed to me, and I don't know how to process this. And I mean, of course, very, very different. My gosh, he was general of the Second World War, and everything that happened once he became president, and what happened after the Second World War, and his relationship with, ETs. I supposedly was told, I was supposedly a spirit guide to him during that time, I was told. That's a better way to put it. And what's interesting is more than one person has said this. I have felt that, sort of familiarity. And so I feel really, really tuned into who he is as just a soul, as a person, just so much love, so much encouragement. And yeah, as far as stories, because I didn't meet him in the physical, I can only really talk about bigger picture stuff. But he was raised on a farm with like 7 other siblings. And this calling was very difficult for his family to process, his parents,
Mhm.
Ida, especially his mother. This was the first time that she like really broke down and cried because he wanted to go off to West Point. And they were like Mennonite background and doing scripture every day, living really, really close to the land. And it's sort of what we all must feel when we wake up to our calling. And it's just so different than what your family is raising you to be or what you're exposed to. It's just something you can't avoid. And it's something that just, really comes in. So I just love that he answered to it, that he was able to warn us. He was able to set up all this positive military. And he was still contending with the larger picture galactic war that we've been in after he became president, that is finally coming to light. And I just think one of my favorite things is his love for Mamie. Reading the love notes that he wrote to her are just, they bring me to tears. Like just his love and appreciation of her, and how, he has a picture of her sitting on his desk and he just talks to it and just feels her every day, and their love is everything. And so I just feel such an affinity with him and his love for humanity. And the quotes he said about the governments had better get out of our way and let the people have peace. And it's very much about what you stand for, right? He knew the government structure was not really serving the people, that we need to wake up and recognize, who we truly are. And so I feel that that foundational awareness within him is what drove him to do what he did in the world. And so, yeah, but I mean, I see pictures of him and my mom and just family members and just all the art he did on the side, and just how much he loved his family, and it's just a good person, and somebody I just always felt was being wrongly accused of things, and I didn't know where it came from, and I just kept following my nose, and I just felt his guidance with me throughout my whole life. So I can only speak to it on that level, and thank God, he's been there. I don't think I'd be here today if it wasn't for his guidance on a spirit level.
Well, we didn't know he was an artist. See, I didn't even know that element of him. So not only was he a political genius, and a great initiator of the plan, right? That now the White Hats are going to execute in their final defeat of the Cabal, but he was an artist as well. That's beautiful. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's got some
Ah.
really beautiful artwork, and I just his humble backgrounds, and it's not what people think
Mhm.
when you think of a presidential family. Like, we weren't raised with like everything handed to us, no trust funds or anything. We've all worked really hard, and I like that work ethic. I appreciate that work ethic. Now, I'm not saying anything's wrong with having trust funds or having all that, but it's a lot different, I think, than what people might picture. And that's what I love revealing in the book, is so much about my story and my connection with him, and what I've discovered along the way about what took place during his administration. There's been so many false narratives that have been spoken about, and it's not coming from people that intend to steer any false narratives. It's because they didn't have access to this information. Even whistleblowers didn't have access to the information that is finally coming to light about what really took place, particularly in 1952, a surrender agreement to the dark side. I don't know what I can say. I don't want to risk any censorship because I've been banned everywhere, but
Right.
he had to work
Yeah.
with Balfour to set up, this
Yeah,
positive military. And like you said, that is rooted in deeper aspects of our history that
absolutely.
have remained alive, thank God, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think he was a big proponent in the creation and development of Solar Warden, and the positive, through the Navy, of course, and the positive programs that were out there protecting not only the Earth but also our solar system from these regressive invading forces that wanted to just take us over overtly. And I think if it wasn't for what he did with Valiant Thor, and how he pleaded the Guardians, and how he pretty much established some sort of relationship and really a collaboration with the positive races, we wouldn't have been here right now, right? We would all would have been under mind control right now.
No, I mean, it's just it's so incredible, because when people do the research, like, oh, your great grandfather sold us out to the Greys. And I'm like, that just doesn't sound right. And if there was some sort of treaty, there's no way that he wanted that. I know there's more to the story. So that was me processing maybe when I was a teenager, right? When I was like coming across this sort of information. But because of his presence when I was young, because of the preparation, to protect me from going off to Mars and being recruited to go to Mars, and just helping to strengthen me and keep me, really aligned. And yeah, what I found out is no, not at all. It was these 3-letter organizations, MJ12,
Yeah,
that
exactly.
really were the ones that did this. So where as we see them rewriting history and creating a false version of reality, they continue to attempt to hide behind things and place other people as being ones to blame. And he certainly isn't a person to blame. And so thank goodness, yeah, he connected with Val, and actually that took place before what we hear about the VIP status for 3 years. It actually happened earlier than that. And it inspired him to invade Dulce in 1954, which was the same year that people are saying that he signed a treaty. But no, actually he ordered an invasion of that underground base to try and take out, the Greys. And so I think, with the help of Val Thor, and the positive military that's been put in place, and like you said, the aspects of the secret space programs that are protective and that have also kept them from being able to leave. I think it's so interesting, his final speech, because it's not just like something's just going to come and take care of it for
Mhm.
us.
Mhm.
It's a knowledgeable and aware citizenry, because of how the war has turned into this war on consciousness, and how the scientists and the different institutes, the Tavistock Institute, and all these different
Yeah.
projects, programs that
Sure.
infiltrated the United States government and spread its tentacles all throughout the world, are all about the grooming and indoctrination of humanity, which we've been, dealing with. So a lot of people have bought into that and have been captured by it. But yes, I feel like the doorway that's been opened enough for us to be able to get a clue is not just because of his alliance with Val, but he also said there was a migration of very advanced souls, and there would be through his correspondence with a star race that is connected to the Lakota, Dakota, Sioux, Native Americans, and also Lemuria,
Mhm.
was a migration of souls, right? And that the most detrimental thing is that star seeds or people with missions are very projected upon, very ridiculed, medicated when they're young. And that this is the most important thing to recognize right now, is that we've all been tasked with these incredible missions, and that we are part of this great plan. And so as we do it, like you're doing it, like in such tremendous ways, um, we're being met with, this also happening on a bigger picture level, but it can't do it for us. And so this awakening is also being able to meet it where we're able to discern, because there are going to be a lot of imposters, a lot of false channeling, and a lot of, you know, hijacking of, this sort of information to get us off course. And so I think, yeah, that's one of the biggest parts of our great awakening, is to really get in touch with our soul, our intuition, our discernment, and to answer to our calling. And so it's great to talk to you, because that's absolutely what you've done. And like this book that you've written, and just really encouraging all of this. It's like, I mean, I think that was a hugely important thing with Val, but I feel that a lot of souls that have been born are holding that torch, that we would be in a lot of trouble if a lot of people didn't come in with this, kind of calling to assist the planet in this time. But I know that, because that's what you are all about. So,
Mhm.
but it's interesting to hear how those sorts of things came up back then, even. And that's
Mhm.
why I love that part of the speech about a knowledgeable and aware citizenry.
Right.
Even though Val, and when he worked with the Eisenhower administration and was put on VIP status, it was still shut down. They were still limited in what they could actually do to assist us. So it's like, okay, it's going to fall on us now. We have to realize what's happening. And if we
Right.
don't, yeah, I mean, look how it's all ramping up. I mean, it's just pretty nuts out there.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. It was actually the guy before him who sold us out. You know what I mean? It wasn't him. So I completely agree. I think that by the time he came into office, the United States government was already under the control of the military-industrial complex, who in turn was already under the control of the negative progressives, the Greys and stuff like that. So I knew that by the time he came to office, he couldn't do anything except counteract that by collaborating with Valiant Thor, who was dispatched by the Queen of Venus, because of course the Venusians are very, very interested in our spiritual evolution, and they want to make sure that we come to the finish line. So I do know that he couldn't do anything, but so what he did is he established a different, you could say opposite plan, right? Which later evolved into the plan, which is now unfolding, thank God, through the good guys. So I've always said that. I've always said that Eisenhower actually established a pact with the positive ETs, not the grays. However, maybe you could answer this question. There was a series of meetings that he had with both groups. Is that correct? In Palm Springs or Palm Desert?
Yeah, well, that's what it is said. And the actual signing, though, of anything, the real signing was the unconditional surrender agreement in 1952. Now, the Galactic Treaty supposedly gets renewed every 10 years. So there was one previous to that. So this was just a carryover. Like, in light of the fact that this unconditional surrender agreement happened, now this treaty is now a part of our American government, this infiltration, the 3-letter organizations, and this secret, these different groups that were always, in this kind of collaboration. Now it was like on American soil, right? And so, okay, let's put, the president as kind of the scapegoat, or as the person that we can place the blame on, when, like you said, this was already happening. The technology exchanges had already taken place. Abductions were already taking place. And so he might have been close by. He might have been somewhere near, because people like Gerald Light and others, I think Philip Corso and some whistleblowers have said things that make it look like, okay, he might have been there. And these aren't ones that I would say are trying to pull the carpet from under us, or the wool over our eyes, whatever those expressions are. So I inquired about this with the senior advisor to the Earth Alliance, which Eisenhower set up, and he just said, well, there's no way that he would have been able to sign anything, because there was 21 levels and now 28 levels above the president as far as top secret information. Now, when we look at the groomed ones that have been put in place, that's a little bit different than the ones that just didn't have access, that might have tried to expose things that got assassinated or attempted to be assassinated and that kind of thing. I really don't think he actually met with the Greys. Now, I was told if he did, he wasn't able to sign anything because the shadow government were the levels above him, and they were the ones making these kind of decisions.
Yeah, exactly. So from what the Galactics told me is that he actually turned down the Greys. He turned down the Greys, and it was Truman who actually signed with the Greys before him.
Yeah, that was the unconditional surrender agreement in 52. That was under Truman, and that was around the time that the UFOs flew over the Capitol, and it's believed that it was craft coming out of Antarctica, and it was a surrender. And there was already
I think what happened was Project Jump. Was it Jumpgate? Project
High Jump.
High Jump was kind of it didn't work. It backfired on them when they realized that the Nazis were already involved with the ETs, and they had already advanced craft. Right. And I believe that's what happened when we saw the different craft fly over the White House. Was it 1954?
Right. 1952, and that's when the unconditional surrender agreement took place. 54 was when the supposed treaty took place.
Exactly.
And so that mission in 1947 was not a success. And supposedly Val actually warned about the Greys and the Nordics, because the Nordics were a part of the, not all the Nordics, and not all Greys are bad. I mean,
exactly.
But this alliance, the Nordics had an underground city called New Berlin. They were different than like the Palladians. I mean, they're different levels of all this. Like when we talk about hybrids, and we talk about things on more of the human sphere, interacting with the human sphere. So that's a lot to untangle. But we hear about first contact, where the Nordics were the first to appear, and they warned about the Greys. When actually, what I have heard, and you might be able to validate even more, is that it was actually Val that warned about both. So when we see these false narratives, it's easy to get confused, because I think that when it comes to disclosure, we're going to be encouraged to trust what seems to be a benevolent race that might claim that they are part of that first contact, when the Guardians and Val, I think, are the ones that are a lot safer to be turning our attention on as far as ETs go. And not even a lot more safe, being the ones that have not only interacted in a positive way, but yes, are that, counterforce.
Right.
So, but again, we're talking about different factions, just like when we talk about Anunnaki, there's different levels, different factions. And, you're definitely one to know a lot more about a lot of that. So, but this is what I've, come to know is Val's influence was very early on. This unconditional surrender agreement took place. And when that happened, that was it. I mean, that was really it. So everything from that point on has been just the cover up of that and the grooming that we've seen in school systems, all this indoctrination and all this like belief, because the history books say it, that we won this war, when actually we are still very much in it. But again, we have to win the war within, and not be loose anymore, not be a part of this inverted dependency bond problem reaction solution, and just all these, false flags and psyops that are thrown at us with something to come in and, save the day, when, it's taking a lot of our vital creative energy and a lot of our just dreams and visions for a better future. And that's where we have to begin to unplug more than anything. Not to say that there aren't, wars continuing on as we see in Israel. I mean, there's some, crazy times, but yeah. So there was a surrender agreement. And the minute I started to talk about that, boy, did I lose my channel. So I know we're on Instagram, we're a lot safer.
We're on YouTube, actually. So if you could speak in code when it comes to certain, topics like that, I'd be greatly appreciated. But I think that your father was a hero, and despite of what other people say, I've always backed him up. I've always kind of corrected people, because I not only had received transmissions from the Lyrans about what really happened when our government struck deals, and the different alliances that took place between the different alien groups. I knew that it was, in fact, the guy before him, TRUM. Maybe I shouldn't even say his name, but TRUMAN, that sold us out to the devil, because he was a big, you could say, puppet for the cabal, for the military-industrial complex. And he was the guy who actually established MJ-12. That wasn't your father. Your father was trying to undo MJ-12. Your father was trying to invade Area 51, because he knew that they were conducting all these hybrid programs, and that they not only were they dissecting the different bodies of these entities, but they were also creating chimeras and different types of hybrids. I mean, there are so many levels in Area 51, if you want to get into like the details of it, but they were creating their own programs, their own hybrid programs. And your father wanted to stop that, from what I understand, Right. And of course, your father was not in favor of them extracting human genetics, of course. And he wanted to expose all of that. And I strongly believe that he informed his successor, who we know what happened, right? Unfortunately, they killed him. His successor, right? Starts with a K, right? He told him about that. And that's why his successor, I mean, he only had 1 year in office, and then they murdered him because he wanted to expose all this. Was it?
Yeah. And I know there's a lot of layers to all of that. And there was a lot of briefing. I mean, they were on the golf course all the time. Eisenhower was telling him, everything. And when you look at, Kennedy's background too, and what he had to stand up to.
Exactly.
I mean, it gets a little more, tricky in that sense. Mm-hmm. And the amount of whistleblowers that were trying to come forward that didn't live too long. I mean, they didn't have access, though, to the information about what we just talked about that happened in 1952. So they actually say, Phil Schneider and William Cooper, not Dan Cooper, who's the senior advisor to the Earth Alliance, that Eisenhower did things that he didn't do, because that's what they were told. So they were exposing all sorts of very, very important things, but some things, stand to be corrected, just because that was heavily guarded. That was heavily guarded. And so, so there was that Battle of Dulce in 1954, different than the one in 1969 with Schneider. And then his attempt to invade, yeah, Area 51 and son of the First Army. And so, yeah, there was so much he wanted to do and that he couldn't do. I mean, the poor man had 8 heart attacks. I think it was chain smoking too. And, sometimes I feel we have that in common. Like I don't chain smoke. Maybe in high school I did, but just the enormity of just what you're seeing and what and what you're called to try and do to call it out. And I know you can relate. And so many of us that are here doing it. And I think it had to skip a generation. Like my mom and my aunts and uncles weren't able to access this information. They weren't on a mission to do that. They have their own really extraordinary, wonderful, and important missions. But I think it had to skip a generation because so many of us are doing this that, in numbers, we're a lot safer. We have each other. We're a unified front. And I feel that it's just an unstoppable force at this point, and they're really losing their grip. So, yeah. So he did try and do all he could do, but he was able to put these things in place that have lived on to this day. And some of these branches are the most successful military branches that are offsetting a lot of this. But it's going to take all of us not being consenting anymore. I mean, you probably know the answer to this, but Looking Glass Technologies, which they utilize, they weren't able to see past a certain date, right? They were able to gain access enough to figure out how they would derail this timeline, and keep it an engineered artificial trajectory, which we're still seeing and witnessing. But it's amazing how we have more power and abilities in our hands now more than ever to steer it in the right direction, and not even steer it, but to align with what already is. The organic ascension timeline you can't destroy. You can only distract yourself away from it, because wouldn't you say that the natural trajectory of this planetary body is taking us somewhere way better than this inverted matrix?
Absolutely. And I think that's the reason why we came from the future. When you think about it, the higher dimensions correspond to the future, right? As we move into 4th and 5D Earth, we're moving into a future version of the Earth, which was what? Terra, right? Terra, for existing in 4 and 5D. So I believe that that's why we're here. That's why we volunteer to come from the future to put into place the organic timeline. Whereas, there's different probable Earths where the organic timeline didn't make it, only the transhumanist timeline.
Yeah, true.
So,
yeah. So, I mean, even though, yes, to a certain degree, it can, in a sense, be destroyed, but you can never really die. Like our soul lives on, right? We might lose our physical. It's just, there's something in the greater cosmic intelligence that, seems to, always repair itself. And in bringing something from the future in order to inform the here and now is a part of that healing process, just like our higher self might intervene and catch us before we make a terrible mistake. And then how that's also our relationship with our galactic heritage, and how, our relationship with some of, these beings are a part of, those future scenarios, which I would say, isn't that you, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I always tell the Galactic Jedis that ETs are just future versions of us. And when we get information or transmissions, we're actually getting transmissions from our galactic selves.
Right.
That's my perspective,
I know, and I love that, because a lot of people don't explain it that way, and it's just more of like something from outside of us doing something to us, versus being such a part of that, to the point we recognize that's in our DNA, that is a part of who we are, and we're here to breathe life into it, and shift our physical out of this lower density, and recover from all the assaults. And we have to kind of come in from the future to be able to do that. So I definitely know, we've talked about Phantom Earth. We both have a lot of awareness of how that all works, and that there was near destruction of the time matrix previously. And that's why the Orifim came in, and then there's a counterforce to try and take them out. And so it's so important that people understand that even if you're not maybe that you hold it in dormancy, and it's just waiting to be activated. Nobody's here to kind of lead you, for you to give your power away to. It's more about some are here that are already aware of all that and have it switched on, that they can help activate it within you. And it might be difficult if there wasn't sort of that bridge or that assistance, but it's not about doing it for you. It's just about being able to activate it by bringing it to light, bringing it to conversation. I mean, we didn't learn about this third period. We didn't go to Galactic history class. We didn't learn about our chakras. We didn't learn about anything. And so what we, breathe life into becomes something we engage in. And where has it ever turned into an inward education? It's always been about what's outside. So it's amazing times to be in with so many that are calling attention this way, and yours in such a unique, way. And I know, there's problems and there's a lot of division in this community. And I don't want anybody to, pit me on one side of anything or the other, but, some things need to be called out. And if you have nothing to hide, people shouldn't be bothered being questioned. I've been called a man, like I got a sex change, and it's laughable. It's I birthed twins and I have the proof. It's like, if you have nothing to hide, you shouldn't be afraid of being questioned, right? I mean, it's if you have something to hide that it's all scary, and you're going to be promoting the divide and conquer more and more because you're threatened. And I think truth doesn't get threatened. I feel truth stands on its own, and we're going to be facing a lot of crazy questions and a lot of doubts and a lot of this and that. And people question maybe the things that we bring forward, but let's be a part of this greater conversation, because it's what's helping us get to the bottom of things. And we don't have to be divided over it, right? Unless there's a real danger that needs to be called out. It's our duty to say something if we feel we must, right? So that's.
Exactly. I agree. Now, would you say that one of these misleading perhaps traps that some of the people in the community are trying to lay out there is the idea that we were made by the Anunnaki and therefore they are our saviors, and we're expecting some sort of alien savior to save us? Would you say that's not right, and people shouldn't buy into that crap?
We shouldn't buy into that at all. No, that those are not our true parents. Have they played a role? Have they influenced us? Yes. And isn't it about overcoming all of that? I mean, and this is what we've talked about, you and me, before, and this is what you bring a lot of life to. I mean, we talk about our divine template, the Christ Sophia, the mother energy, the cosmic trinity, the true source energy, the 0 point unified field, the guardian founder races, and what took place in our galactic wars that led to the Atlantean cataclysms or Lemurian Holocaust, and the different seedings of humans on Earth, and the root races that came in, 7 root races, 5 cloister races, 7 + 5 is 12. We're working to rebuild the 12-strand DNA architecture. And that it goes beyond the timeline trajectories that were laid out by our so-called gods or fathers, and even, just any of that. And those archetypal energies influence us, but we got to reconcile them within ourselves in order to move to true source energy. And there wouldn't be such manipulation in religious texts and distortions of ancient texts if somebody like the Anunnaki didn't have a hand in making it very, very difficult to get back to the true teachings of the Essenes and what it means to be a Christed being. We just don't hear about that we're not empowered to even think about that. Unless, you really shut everything off and you just really tap in and feel into it all. But they manipulated things. And yes, I do feel there was a seeding of humans where they were overseeing the garden, but not as true source energy. But maybe bridging to a certain degree to put us on a path of gaining knowledge. But knowledge has been targeted with mind control. So how are we gaining knowledge? Yeah. We're not wanting to gain knowledge outside of ourselves. To gain self-knowledge, we have to restore the tree of life. Wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. I agree that it all starts within ourselves, that we have to refuse our interconnectivity with the other aspects of ourselves, because everything in the universe is integrated whole. There is no separation between us and the celestials. And what I mean by that is the different degrees and grades of interdimensionals that exist all the way up to the 12th dimension, right? Where, matter becomes pre-material liquid light. And to me, the ascension has always been about reintegrating those aspects of ourselves so that we could become that whole consciousness that we once were in the 12D before we fragmented as we descended into lower densities and started using denser and lower vehicles and stuff. I've always believed that, as opposed to the idea that, well, I have a galactic body that is resting in stasis somewhere on a mothership, and my consciousness is just projecting into this avatar in the 3D while my galactic body is sleeping in stasis. I've never bought into that crap. I've always believed that as multidimensional beings, we are literally operating on different dimensions all simultaneously. But that's my personal belief.
Right. No, I
So,
feel that too. I feel that too. And I definitely feel that's why I like to joke, and I'm sure other people have said this, the whole ADD, attention on different dimensions. I was so not in my body, like as a child. I was just somewhere else. And I know when my energy's been read by people, they're like, oh yeah, you're off doing this in this dimension and over here in this dimension. It's like really hard to ground down here. Finally, I think I have to a certain degree. But yeah, we have to recognize that the two main controller forces, Sons of Belial and the Black Suns, compromise their DNA and are doing everything to indoctrinate us out of remembering who we truly are, so that it can continue to hook into us, because it lost its direct connect. It can only steal it, from us. And all these different tactics are ways to plug into that energy, to trick us out of ourselves, to use that energy to, battery up these artificial timelines. And so when people say powers that be, I know I redundantly say this, they're not the powers that be. We are. They stole this power. This is power that they've figured out a way to harvest and take from us. And we simply need to call it back, because that is our vital creative power to co-create something, really wonderful. Everything phantom, everything inverted is literally us, going in the opposite direction of the growth periods and initiations that are available. That's why all these planetary alignments, there's some kind of psyop or weaponization of it during times of massive growth periods for humanity. And instead, the inversion is like doing the exact opposite of what's actually available, breathing in the breath of life and the quintessence and the ether energy that's available. I mean, what's all this? Putting that on and all this distancing. I mean, it's absolutely the opposite of what these times are all about. It's a complete and total rewritten script to absolutely derail us. And because it's all about sacred union, I feel, rebuilding the Tree of Life template, all about integration of polarity, hierogamic union within ourselves. I always refer to it as, it's like you're breaking up with an imposter. You're breaking up with an abusive partner. If we're in a dependency bond with a system that acts like it cares about us and actually doesn't, it's no different than having to get away from somebody that's doing it, this to us in our own personal life. And then guess what it means for you? Your self-worth, you realize, deserves so much better, that you're now on a trajectory of finding true love. So we're finding that with creation, not this inverted, timeline. We're finding it with falling back and recognizing our true worth, our ability to be abundant, our ability to not need what it has addicted us to, and go through that withdrawal or that dark night of the soul. How many times you have to go into that? My book's about how many times I've been in that. And it's not so much about detaching from it as much as it's navigating this when it's really hard to talk about. Because I put myself in very challenging situations just to prove that point to myself. Like, we can manifest, like we don't need any of this, right? We don't need to partner with this. It doesn't love us. It doesn't care about us. Now, there's plenty of really positive aspects. So I feel in this bifurcation, there's a bridging between the two in order to hopefully steer people that have played an important role in the system, that are being asked to compromise themselves, to think again and begin to pool resources with the rest of us, so that we can rebuild healing centers, educational centers that have nothing to do with this level of grooming and indoctrination we're seeing right now, which has reached very critical and detrimental levels, as we see with, gender confusion, when we're really supposed to be embracing our inner androgyny when we're kids and just, embracing our inner masculine and feminine. It's like, boy, are they steering that in a really distorted way. And it's different if you naturally fall upon that in your life. It's another thing when you're being encouraged, and that you can actually do this without your parents' consent before you're even 13 years old. So it's a lot to witness. I'm trying to be more neutral, but it's just.
Yeah. Have you ever heard the concept that transgenderism leads to transhumanism? If they could get people to be confused about, well, that's how these inorganic timelines have always taken over systems throughout the many, many universes. They always invade from within. They never do it overtly. Overtly is a very primitive way to take over what, in their eyes, what they would consider an underdeveloped technological civilization. They always use the covert and the invading from within method, where what they do is they introduce what they did 3 years ago. I'm not going to say, the thing. They introduced that, and over a period of time, the biological life forms lose their connection to God, and that's what exactly what that is. It is designed to disconnect us from our own connection to God, so that they could eventually plug us into the Borg. And so that's what happened many civilizations. And it all starts with confusing their gender. Once you confuse their gender, then you're able to convince them to, get implants and to, integrate with technology eventually. Which is a trap, which is the biggest trap out there, not only happening here in our world, but of course we are going to see a bifurcation of timelines where people like you and myself and all the other people that are on this path are not going to be thrown into the technocratic dystopia. But unfortunately, many civilizations have fallen and have many have been destroyed as a result of that.
Oh, totally. And I feel they're interacting with us. Some are warning us. Some are trying to make up for these choices and regain the soul matrix again through whatever means, as you know so well, that, there's so much interaction with this, sort of larger picture of, this greater sort of, repair work. Everything ultimately wants to return to source. We can be led astray and taken so far off course until, a species runs into the dilemma that has to, reverse all of this eventually. And I think some of these abduction scenarios and some of the breeding programs are for that reason. And some aren't. Some are just to keep this hybridization alive, to infiltrate. And it's hard to say, who's dealing with what. But I feel anything can be turned around the minute you get your mind back, the minute you begin to think for yourself, the minute you begin to unplug, because it's obviously all about frequency and the antennas that have been created in our bodies because of what we've ingested or put in our bodies and inhaled and blah, 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 and how that links into, these events that are even connected to supercomputer that sends out these, frequencies in order to just keep us disempowered and from thinking for ourselves. I really feel that we're in a time where we can reverse a lot of these assaults. Now, maybe some things on a physical level won't be easily reversible if you've, gone under the knife and completely changed your gender, but you'll do your best in this lifetime with what you can do with that, but just get your soul back, if nothing else, regardless of how far you've gone down that road, anything can be reversed. Because the minute we switch on, we become the override frequency and we become the advanced technology that I feel dismantles all the dark technology, because it's ultimately within us. Like you said in the beginning, we are the organic technology. The archonic technologies, they are functioning at a lower vibration. And it only works if we are dropped down to a vibration that we can be assimilated into, which requires us to be in a level of duality and discord and divide and conquer and panic and survival. If we're in, unity consciousness or self-love, or we are able to come to terms with, being duped and lied to, the healing process really begins. And it doesn't matter, the physical will eventually catch up, even if it means waiting for the next lifetime so you can have an organic body to maybe not alter. But I don't want to say this out of any, disrespect for anybody that has made that transition. But, we know just basic common sense that nobody should be making these decisions until they are mature enough. They've already gone through puberty and they just don't see any other way. But I mean, we got to know which thoughts are our own and which aren't. I mean, I know I work with a lot of people. They really do feel my soul is female and I'm in a male body. But I also know a lot of men that are in touch with their inner divine feminine and are very sensitive, have no problem crying, and love to do things that, we've been taught that only women do, and vice versa. So I think it's more about deprogramming from the last generation than rebelling against it to the point where this level of confusion is taking place. And this is what's scary, because the progression of what could be happening in organic evolution would be learning from what we went through when we grew up, instead of being almost reactionary to it, or like being reactionary to religion, where you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater and you throw Jesus Christ away and you don't believe in God anymore. It's like, wait a second, just open up the box. There's way more to the picture. But some people just go to the extreme when they negate something. Instead of seeking a greater truth, they're going into another hijacked net.
They are. And that's what I'm warning, a lot of the people in this community, is that don't fall into the alien savior trap mentality, because that's just another what they're doing is they're taking the concept of religion, which, religion takes away the idea that we could have a direct connection with God through our own divinity, right? And places it to a mediator, whether it be a pastor, a priest, or a bishop or anything. So what they're doing in this case is they're taking that concept from the idea that Jesus is coming back in the clouds to the idea that the Anunnaki are coming back to save us, when in essence, we are the ones everyone's expecting, all the millions of volunteers that are down here in human form. I've always tell people the second coming of Christ is not an external event. It is a remembering and really just a reawakening of the Christ mind, done by millions of us.
Absolutely. Exactly. It's returning through us. I mean, and it's just all within us to awaken. I mean, we learned this with junk DNA. It's not junk DNA. And the thing is, people accept what they learn. They learned about dinosaurs, and that's, it's not hard for people to swallow because they learned about it when they were young kids, but we didn't learn about, this fuller picture. So later on, when people become exposed to it, just can't be true. If you didn't learn it, no, it actually more than likely is, because you didn't. I mean, it's so much to, unravel from. And it's so important, that we protect future generations, and we just really homeschool or rebuild in a much, better way than what we're seeing and what we're getting. It's incredibly, detrimental. And it's important to understand that, becoming a Christed being. This is why I call myself an alchemist, right? It's like, well, what kind of alchemist? So I kind of like, we're all alchemists when you look at the ability to turn lead into gold, the lead of this lower human density into gold, into, just being able to connect with your Christ itself, connect to your higher self, integrate it fully into your physical life. So it becomes a way of life. It's not just something that you visit over here. No, it becomes, your every walking moment that you are conscious and aware of. So you can always, self-correct. You're always mindful to the point where when you slip, you pull yourself back. You're not waiting for some priest to resolve it. You're not waiting for Sunday. It's like, every day is sacred. Every moment is sacred. Love is sacred. Sexuality is sacred. Everything. We're just learning to honor, and through doing the inner work and purifying, where we've been traumatized, where we've been programmed, and where we've, slipped and fallen, and have to say, whoops, I have to forgive myself. We got to cut ourselves a lot of slack. Look how interfered with we've been. So you just don't get that in school. That's why, I had the worst attendance in school. I'm like, I mean, it helped to have other catalysts be a reason I didn't show up. I just, it just was so uncomfortable. It was just so uncomfortable. Not to say that there's not a lot to get out of it, but I've never really had an easy time with the religious aspect either. And this is what's hard, because nobody should feel like they can't wake up because they've invested so much into something that would shatter their reality too much. This isn't about formulating a new belief system. This isn't about you dumping one for the sake of another. This is about you realizing this is much better than you even thought. This is about you becoming the message. This is about you, honoring, this process within yourself, which is breaking through all of that. I mean, there's no shame in where we've been and what we've done, but let's be humble enough to take it to the next level. I mean, it's obvious there's been a major patriarchal agenda that's impacted both men and women. When we think about world wars, when we also think about, every aspect of our society and how it's been imbalanced. So this should be a next step of you getting to know yourself more. Not adopt some kind of belief system or new agey thing or something woo-woo that takes you out of your comfort zone. No, it's about understanding that all that's dormant within you is wanting you to breathe life into it. And that is the greatest education of all. And yes, and then it'll open up a much larger picture. And maybe you need to understand the larger picture for that activation to happen. Doesn't matter which comes first. But the thing is, take it, at whatever speed you must. But, we have to have an open mind. And in doing that, exercise that discernment. Like you would want to exercise every day and not just eat all the time. You gain too much weight, right? I mean, it's all about balance.
Absolutely. Balance is key. I mean, when you think about it, the whole universe works on balance, and sometimes duality is needed in order to go beyond the stagnant and continue the growth, would you say?
Absolutely.
But it also has a time limit. Duality only works for a specific period of time, and then it bounces back or it collapses back into a singularity. And that is the you could say, I've always believed that was the way the cosmos expands, one outer space level at a time, right? And experiences a phase of singularity where everything's back into oneness. And would you agree that this is what we call the Christ principle, right? Where
It is.
Yeah,
It's integration of polarity. It's that union, right? Our right and left brain working together. It's the union of the masculine and feminine. They're dancing together. They're conceiving. They're embracing. They're working in harmony together. Not one having a power struggle over the other. And duality teaches us a lot. And I do a lot of presentations called Upgrading in the Face of Adversity, because in the face of these challenges is an opportunity to open up a doorway to see, what does your higher self really want for you in this moment? In the face of disease and adversity, do you give your power away for somebody else to define it or medicate it? Or do you get to know yourself better? Do we really learn to get to know ourselves better when there's injury or disease? No, we ask somebody else to fix it, which is, important if it's an emergency situation. But how much are we losing ourselves to somebody outside of ourselves doing all the fixing? It means we're also under a diagnosis. We're under a probability of what they think is going to happen to us, how long we're going to live, what tomorrow is going to look like. Then all of a sudden we're being robbed of the experience, when really all that adversity and all that dis-ease is your body crying out for you to get to know it more and unlock blockages and clear energy and purify and actually, recognize what a blessing it is. It's your body's trying to get your attention. And so we're taught to, kind of give it away, or this is success, this is failure, this is what it means to, be healthy, and this is what it means to be sick. But, sometimes the most advanced people are just empaths, and they just are sickened by the toxicity and they feel too much. So it's important to know that versus, somebody who's really maybe struggling with an ancestral pattern they can't clear. It's not a one size fits all. So if we can't look at the uniqueness of each soul and work with them and understand, their makeup, their history, their maybe astrology, or if somebody can intuit, or just medical intuition, and being able to really look more deeply, then we're really being robbed of the great initiations and the wake-up calls that our body is providing, that we've misunderstood for disease or depression or anger management. It's like, no, that's your inner voice trying to get your attention. It's got a calling for you. And that anger is your passion that wants you to take action, instead of sit there and let it eat you alive and then just take Xanax or whatever. Yeah. And I know we've all probably been there, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But, let's give our bodies and our emotions and everything that we're going through a lot more respect and credit, instead of, losing ourselves in the face of it.
So would you agree that true liberation is being not codependent on anything, but on oneself?
I think, yes, I think there's a lot of training wheels. So I don't think, it's all been so negative. We've all been so duped. I think, it's great if something can, somebody or something can kind of hold our hand, but it has to also encourage that dependency bond to be broken, or else it's just keeping you there and wanting to keep you sick, wanting to make money off of you, not wanting you to get better, or wanting you to give your power over to it, wanting you to be a lowly follower, It's just, and it comes in all different forms in all different sectors of our society. And in that, you're going to find, that teacher that changed your life and was the greatest teacher that inspired you to be the person you are today, or that one that was abusive and undermined you and made you, stupid person that was in detention class. It's like, I was probably that kid. And anyway, so, the outer voices of authority connected to Saturn, people often mistake for their inner voice when they grow up, and they think it's their, their insecurity or their resistances is their inner voice, when really it got conditioned into them. Their dream world got broken, or they dealt with some sort of outer authority that was misused its power. And then you mistake it for your inner voice. You got to know, was that really yours to begin with? Because when we flip Saturn over and we move into this higher earth energy, and we see with some of the planetary alignments, Saturn is losing its rings. The Saturn moon matrix is breaking down, and Saturn is being restored to the higher octave within us when we become masters, like self-mastery over these trials and tribulations, which is where duality, like you said, is temporary. So we have to go through these trials and tribulations to allow it to help us to remember, because it doesn't feel right, versus being so afraid that we're going to get in trouble or get punished, or we just don't have it in us. And realize that mostly insecurity means that you have a lot of treasure that you haven't tapped into. And the reason you feel nervous is because you haven't brought it out yet and you don't know what people are going to say. Never think it's because of lack, because there's nothing we're lacking for. Usually it just got shut down. Somebody was threatened by it or intimidated by it, because you came in here to change the game and you came here to activate. And somebody just doesn't like that and doesn't want that. And then all of a sudden that's your resistance, that's your block, that's your disease. So we got to just get real deep and close with ourselves to really understand the root cause, so that we can flip this tyranny around, or this misuse of power, and be in that higher octave of Saturn, which rules the law of structure, so that our physical structure can house our multidimensional awareness, our soul, and our ego, can integrate into that, and then just be this incredible vehicle of, change that ripples out, that activates and inspires, everybody it runs across, without having to do anything but just be yourself, talking to that soul, not their programming, and, just living on that kind of deeper level with each other, I think, is the 5D. And even somebody at the grocery store who might otherwise, be a programmed person, can be relieved of that if you can just see through all of those layers and just get to the core and really talk to their soul. And that, I think, is the greatest gift we can give each other. And that's how we're going to heal. Because once that happens, the person's like, wow, do I really want to go home to that person that's talking down to me and mistreating me? That person just gave me love and respect. That is the Christed way, right? It doesn't have to be in a church. It doesn't have to be. And I think, we just have to remember that. And even the compromised people that have been blackmailed, can we just not see them necessarily as the enemy? Can we have open arms and understand what they've gone through that made them the way that they are? Because if we call these things out, maybe there's a chance for them to say, well, look what Kathy O'Brien did. Maybe, walk in a similar direction as that person. I mean, so I hope that a lot of, what we build and what already is being built will help the deprogramming and the healing of, the most severe of traumas and ritual abuse and stuff like that too.
Mm-hmm. Speaking about the traumas and the ritual abuses, due to the fact that the Earth Alliance and the White Hats are they've done what, 99.9% of the job, or perhaps even 100. Do you think that stuff's still going on till this day?
Which stuff is going on? The
dark rituals and the children sacrifice.
Yeah, that's what I thought you meant. Yeah. I do think it's going on, but I think it's not like it was. It's absolutely not like it was.
So the White House and the Earth Alliance have definitely done their jobs, what you're saying.
Yeah, and I feel that those that have taken a stand, or who were still a part of that were running an altar that looked like a benevolent sort of whistleblower, and then one realizes, okay, they're not fully free just yet. Okay, because supposedly Laura Worley, who was a part of all these projects and programs, was born into it. She said that they pulled a lot of my lab and a lot of individuals that were born into this back in 2014, 2015 to prepare for, the big thing that hit everyone in 2019, 2020. And that they did a ritual, they reprogrammed, and a lot of people that thought that they were free from their grips actually were taken. And she realized it because she could tell something was wrong, because she's done so much inner work, written a book about it, and she could tell something was wrong. And then she remembered the ritual. She remembered who was there. And these are people that are pushing what was pushed, that were participants, right? So now that that's all been called out, I feel like that was like one of the big whammies that was supposed to be a lot more successful than it was. So I feel that their ability to continue doing this is not coming so easy. I think they're looking over their shoulder. I think, yes, that the presence of the White Hats and the positive forces of the military, I feel they have been notified that this is a window where you can come clean, because if you don't, the ramifications are going to be huge. So there's a difference between like the Dark Lords that are performing and the victims, right? And I'm sure the ones that are performing were victims at one time as well. But where are you going to like break the generational patterning, the curse, the multi-generational carry-on of the trauma-based rituals and all that kind of stuff? I think it's shrinking every day like a tumor. Like I feel like the Earth and the immune system is like unity consciousness, is all of us coming together, calling this out, and it's shrinking this tumor that's filled with all this dark, nefarious activity, and it's shrinking more and more every day.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Thank you for sharing all that with us. You are a breath of wisdom. Now, I do have another question for you. I had to write down my questions because I know that you are just very well educated when it comes to the galactic scenario, what's really happening on the Earth, the SSP, and so on and so forth. So I had some questions for you. So um, my next question for you is your grandfather or your great grandfather once said, "Plans are worthless, but planning is everything." How do you interpret this in terms of facing uncertainties in life and maintain faith in one's path?
So plans are worthless, but planning is everything.
Correct. He said. He said plans are worthless, but planning is everything. Do you remember him
I
saying that?
think, yeah, no, it's familiar, and I know a lot of his quotes. This is one I haven't really digested, so I'm excited about that because yes, what I feel is, you know, okay, so planning is important, but wait, say that again.
Okay, so I'm quoting your great grandfather. Plans are worthless, but planning is everything. I
Okay,
know
so
that's
if you
paradox.
right, if you make a plan, that plan might not work out, right? So it's not about having huge expectations. But if
Mhm,
you're planning, then you're prepared, right? So if you're gonna go off in a sailboat, you want to plan uh and bring a life jacket, bring extra food, bring a flashlight or a what do you call it? Um a flare, right?
mhm,
But but plan, if you create like, a plan, things might not go according to plan. We need to have flexibility. And same thing with our belief systems. We need to have flexibility. We need to be stand to be corrected. You
mhm,
can have a plan to, have this beautiful house and have this job and have this perfect marriage. And
mhm,
yes, what if that doesn't happen? Well, maybe in planning you have plan B. Maybe you have yourself to fall back on. Maybe you are able to embrace the divine plan, maybe a greater plan for yourself that your ego didn't think of or your mind didn't think of. Maybe you were encouraged to come up with this. And actually, there's a different kind of plan. I know that my higher self had other plans for me than the plans that I made. And I'm glad I had the flexibility to not look at the things that didn't work out as failers. It's like, well,
mhm,
that didn't exactly go according to plan. Well, who wants plans? But I'm glad that I kind of plan ahead and I've prepped and I have good water. So, just the things that you would want to plan in your life while being a little bit more flexible and surrendering to what might happen that might not be according to the plan that I originally thought. Because I love being happily surprised. I'm like, oh, this is even better than I thought, a lot harder, a lot more rewarding. Not exactly maybe, yeah, and like in the world or just in our lives. We're going to come up with this is what I want to be when I grow up. This is the school I'm going to go to. This is what I'm going to do. But, what if life and what if some adventure takes you into a completely different direction? Are you going to resist that greater awakening because it's not the plan that you had? I mean, we have to just allow these greater forces, cosmic and natural law, and just, the power of Uranus and Pluto, the death and tower and the tarot, to just shake us up and throw us into growth periods that might take us somewhere even better than we expected. But if we judge it, if we negate it, we're going to look at it as a misfortune. We're not going to be able to process it, and we're going to battle it, and then we won't really grow, I feel. So if he meant that, great. If I just added a whole slew of a bunch of ramble on top of that, I don't know, but that's kind of what came
Oh,
up.
that was an awesome. Thank you. That was a great answer. So you are a prepper, right? You know that any day now the white hats are going to switch the switch on the cabal, right?
Yeah. So I mean,
Mhm.
yeah. We're prepared, but what if you're not prepared? Just inwardly prepare, right? I mean, my background's wilderness expedition leadership, and that was a long time ago. So it's not going to be so easy like it used to be to just go off in 20 below or winter and just build a quinchee and just make a fire and this and that. It's going to take a bit to just get that part of me going again. But you can be resourceful no matter what happens. Yeah, it's great to prep. Yeah, we're prepped. And we're also, in the kind of location where it's important. We lose our power a lot. And it's just something that is a nice thing to fall back on. So at least for a month, it's good to just be prepared, have a generator, make sure you've got a good water filtration, maybe, a good supply of food for the next couple months, get seeds, see if you get along with your neighbors. And if not, protect yourself as best as you can. We have like, wild dogs, trespassing and, but I mean, yeah. But what if I lost all of that? I've lived out of my vehicle. I've lived on the road. I knew that if I had a state of mind, if I'm screwed and my future is done because I have no money, I have like $5 to my name. I'm in this vehicle and I'm like kind of stranded. If I start to invite a lot of negativity and judgment about that, I noticed how the energy would shift. Same thing when I was in the wilderness and I was training. Your attitude has everything to do with what you manifest. And I could see the difference in the way people were carrying their energy with the kind of experience they were having. And so when I trained myself to not go into poverty consciousness or victimhood or, oh my gosh, this is all doom and gloom, I'm not ready for this, I'm not prepared. I said, this is a clean slate. I'm abundant, I'm grounded, I'm aligned, to the best of my ability. And then all of a sudden, I manifested money just on the ground, and I just would run into cool people, and just everything seemed to fall into place because I was allowing my third eye to notice the things that actually support me and the higher guidance that has my back versus my survival chakra and all the things that are reinforcing my anxiety and fears, which took me on a completely different kind of path. So I think number one, you want to prepare inwardly. And then, yes, it doesn't hurt to prepare on a physical level, but say you aren't, just know that, you're abundant. And when you reach these levels of consciousness, you can manifest things. You can run into the right people. You can flow with the synchronicities and magic of life. And I think that is why we're being pushed to the edge, is to discover that resource within ourselves again. So, but yeah, we're pretty well prepped here. But again, if it all were to disappear, knock on wood that it won't, I have gone through enough to remember to be resourceful within myself and not go into fear or panic mode. Or if I do, to give myself a day off, to go crawl away, cry it out, release it, write it down, get it out of my system. Because it's like eating bad food. Your body wants to reject it, just like bad thoughts. Our body doesn't respond well to it. It constricts, it starts to create pain. So, we have to know, where does our body thrive? It thrives in, trusting ourselves and being in a vibration of love and acceptance. And I think that's the ultimate way to remember that this is really connecting to God's source. This can be every moment. Yeah, it's easy to fall down and have to get back up again. But as long as we know where that home base is within ourselves, there's nothing I feel we can't handle. Because we can manifest out of thin air. It's just like, whoa, I just walked behind that. I'm not saying like dumpster diving or anything, but you walk behind something, it's like, oh my God, somebody just left a box of sweaters and shoes. Like, where'd that come from? It's like, look out for the miracles and the synchronicities in these crazy times.
I totally agree, my sister. Now, what's your interpretation of God's source?
Well, I feel our higher self is that, direct connect and our intuition. And I feel it's this earth body is like a physical manifestation of part of the Godhead, like the Sophionic energy, and that the Venus transits are creating corrections in order to help recover from the cataclysms that have taken place. But there's a lot, one could break it down to, look at all the different things going on with that. I feel it's the 0 point unified field. It's mother, father, and the Christ Sophia divine template that exists within us. I feel, the pleroma, or that higher aspect of ourselves, is where this sort of cosmic trinity resides. And there's different aspects of it that we will feel in touch with at different times. But they're in union with each other. And I feel that, the divine child, or the Christ Sophia child, is sort of our divine innocence of just being here, born into this world. And, and when we want to fall back on source energy or God energy, we have to know that it's just as much within as it's without, right? But not like in our ego, but in, surrender, in humility, in our ability to receive, our ability to listen, our ability to feel, that greater guidance. It's about understanding that it's the source of all beings, and that everything returns to source, and that ultimately we're all different parts of the puzzle pieces that we're looking to rebuild. And also you redeem these fallen aspects by not emulating these fallen aspects through living in our negative ego, or consenting or complying, or living in false light, or just being all about, service to self. That we connect to God's source as being the true origins of where we all came from and where we can all return. And that when we are healing within ourselves, we're returning to that within, which regenerates, which heals, which does extraordinary things. And it's a very sacred personal path to really get in touch with it. And I don't think any religion or any book can really do it like the life experience and what life is trying to show us. And if we can read between the lines, and if we can really, understand what it's trying to show us, that our life naturally guides us home to that source energy. Of course, there's a lot of great books and a lot of important things that will help, but it's certainly not outside of us. It's inside of us to awaken to outside of us, of course. And sometimes we might feel it more outside of us and then awaken it to within us. But we are the inheritors of source energy, and we're on a soul journey, and our ego is learning how to be in alignment and integration with it. And that to me is the power of source energy, which is unconditional love that loves us no matter what and will never reject us, no matter what we've done or what we've gone through.
Right. I completely agree with everything you said. Thank you for saying that. Now,
there's so much more to it. When we look at the Sophionic story and just like all the stuff that happened, but I feel like God's source, a part of God's source, has gone on its own journey, right? And it's rebuilding itself, and it's through us and with us that this repair work is taking place. Anyway, I tend to ramble, guys. I'm sorry.
No, we love your wisdom. Your wisdom is very aligned with truth. I mean, it resonates with me, and I'm sure it resonates with a lot of the Galactic Jedis and everybody who's on this path of personal transformation, doing the internal work, right? Collapsing the polarity duality, reaching 0 point within ourselves. Because when you think about it, even the fallen ones, even the dark side, they're also a part of God. They're just, and that explains why in a sense they're trying so hard to just reconnect with what they lost. When you think about it, and that's why they do what they do, and that's why they hoard, and that's why they exploit, and that's why they control, because in their mind they suffer from scarcity consciousness. They suffer from separatism because they lost the connection to source. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm.
That they're also a part of God, and that's why they do what they do?
Absolutely. And this is part of the experience. People call it a free will universe. Okay, well, sometimes it doesn't feel like that when you feel you have to answer to outer authority, or you don't feel you're in control of your life. But we have choices. And it's interesting to see what took place. The Guardian Founder races, the fallen aspects. What happened in Lyra, and how our 12 strand, and from Lyra down to the Orion Wars, and this duality and all this. I mean, it's like a game. It's like a story of lost and found. And yes, there are some beings that have gotten so lost and so far away that it'll take a bit to get back. And ones that have been that demiurgic veil, or ones that really represent the lower God energies within the net, in order to keep us from breaking through the net to true source, that are like needing us for their own survival because they've lost connection, that we are not allowing to continue anymore, so that they have a chance to redeem themselves. They have a chance to do whatever they need to do to restore that. And stuff, they'll just be returned to space dust and back to, source creator, to maybe have a different experience if they're not able to. But everything returns to source. And every being that has gotten far away has the opportunity to be, redeemed and corrected. And the reason why it's gone this far is because I feel, and I know you probably know way more about this than I do, that they are cheating death and downloading their consciousness into other bodies and using this technology to trick the death process, because the amount of karmic cleansing that is going to need to happen is too immense, that, that they're just wanting to like rule an artificial world that is based in imitation, that has tricked us out of our divinity for it to, feed on, so it maintains power. So that's just like us that has a crisis within our own negative ego. What if we've been acting off somebody without realizing it? What if we used somebody? What if somebody used us? Is that person forever, doomed? No, they can wake up and they can redeem themselves, and they can reconnect. But yeah, some is going to take a lot longer than others. But I feel that this is, what's happening, and that part of them, you can never really destroy. You can cut it off. You can put fences. You can put seals. You can, you can change it, but it can't ever really die, because your true source parents will always be the source that you originated. And I feel all will eventually come home again.
Yeah.
So where are we at soul level determines kind of where we are with our growth. Are we in relationship to that, those fallen elements? Well,
Exactly.
when we redeem ourselves, I feel we are helping them. And
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the answer. That's what they're doing with Simi Valley, right? They're saying, well, if we can't make the Ascension cut, well, we might as well do it through technology, right? By transferring our consciousness into a computer, which is, their way of, like you said, their way of cheating. But in a way, they were also victims. The reptilians were also victims. They were hijacked by the archons, the archonic energies.
Oh, totally.
Billions of years ago. I think that took place in a different universe, right before they invaded our universe.
Yes.
Did you ever hear anything about that? How the reptilians were hijacked as well?
Yeah. They were commissioned and used, and right to kind of do like the dirty work. And when you look at the hybridization and the orphan mixed also with the reptilian, and the reptilian just there's different levels of all of this. And so, fallen aspects or ones that are being used for a particular reason are not able to function in the way they would have functioned. Look at, humans being modified into grays. I mean, that was a certain level of hijacking as well. So most of these dark alliances are like capturing and using all sorts of beings that would rather, be liberated. And we hold those aspects within ourselves. So, there's some grays that are trying to overcome being enslaved in the Orion system still to this day. Somebody wrote, I'm really not enjoying this live. Laura's all over the place, blah, blah, blah. That's just so funny. Like anybody would go out of their way to say that. There's a lot to unpack when it comes to these kind of conversations. But yeah, I mean, the reptilian energy.
Don't take it, Laura. I also get trolls that are bashing me on my.
It's fine. It's just funny. It's just like.
So earlier somebody says, "Are you the fake Ishmael?" I just ignore it. I mean, honestly,
I know. I like to see what. I haven't seen a feed in a while. No, mostly people are saying awesome things. It's really great. No, it doesn't bother me at all. I wish I could, articulate a little bit more clearly, but we.
No, you're like very, very articulate, very intelligent. By the way, I really respect you.
Oh, well, likewise. But yeah, definitely it's interesting to see all of that, because you have a certain group of reptilian energy also that were part of invading Lyra, right? An aggressive sort of force. And I feel when we started to fall out of the avatar, higher harmonic universe, dimensions 10, 11, and 12, and we're dealing with like Luciferian rebellions, and we're dealing with the manipulation of incarnate consciousness and hybridization. It was able to also manipulate that particular DNA within ourselves to have those archonic forces like hook that into us in a way. But there's a lot more to the picture when it comes to the dragon energy, when it comes to the reptilians. A lot of benevolent groups that have nothing to do with it. When we look at the nefarious groups, they're so small compared to the enormity of what's benevolent. Similar to our immune system is so much bigger than anything that could possibly compromise our body. The point is, can we get in touch with it for it to be able to heal us is the question. So
Absolutely, I agree. I have another question for you. So can you share more about how you came to this belief, everything that you just explained, and the impact you think that these encounters had on... Oh, okay. I guess I'm sorry. I'm reading. This is regarding your great grandfather. My bad. So, can you share more about how you came to this belief and the impact you think these encounters had on his presidency and policies? I'm referring to the positive ETs. In your work, you often talk about humanity's pursuing organic illumination path. I guess you've already answered that
for a minute there. So, how much do I feel that these benevolent ETs had an impact on what?
On your father's presidency.
I think it made a huge impact.
Great grandfathers.
Oh, it's okay. No, I know you're just shortening it. Father, great. I feel it was everything about how this administration has like taken the baton and has passed it along, right? I mean, a lot of the things he set up did not really get initiated until later on. The white hats, yes, but when we talk about how Valthor helped connect him with the Guardians. That outer barrier wasn't put around the planet until 2014. So
Right.
I feel like it ignited something that has lived on and still continues to this day, and also carried the baton from things that had taken place earlier in our history. And yeah, I mean, he wasn't able to expose all this stuff. There were a lot of false narratives being steered. And here we are in the here and now, disseminating and breaking down what that speech was all about, finding out more about his relationship with Valthor, finding out a lot more about all these things. And it's all in my book. One of the important encounters he had was to help star beings initiate a migration of souls to be born. And that the guardian force was not just going to be the guardians as you know, the sphere being alliance outside of us assisting us, but that representatives of the guardians, which I know is very much what you talk about and what you embody, right, would be coming in. So when we look at like Lisa Renee's work, and that she works directly, you know, with the Guardians, the Guardian perspective, you know, the explanation of our true galactic history. I think it was a very, very crucial administration to be open to that. And people will notice in my book that they tried to do this with other leaders and other presidents and other world leaders. He was the only one that was in agreement to work with the benevolent ones. So like you said, things could be a lot darker than it is right now, but as long as, you know, people are still being born with missions, it would have made it a lot harder for any of us if he wasn't able to do what he did. But again, he's not one to take all the credit, and I'm not one to give him all the credit, because one of the most important things, like I said before, that he has said is that we have to remember who we are and why we came. And this is the most important thing for all of us to remember, and that we're going to see some sort of shift where the government structure is not going to be what it has been. And we're going to pull our resources together and step up as the leaders that we're here to be. And this is the thing with any kind of system that always has somebody that we turn to outside of ourselves. And yes, there are positive people that have been put in those positions, like him and others. And you know, what we've seen, you know, currently kind of show that, all right, there's somebody that's looking out for the human race. Hopefully that will continue. And it's sometimes hard to read, but where is this like taking us? And I think collapsing the military industrial complex in a way, and the interplanetary corporate conglomerate, and where it is on the ground level and all the way up, is what was the gift of this final speech. That even somebody that doesn't know about the benevolent encounters that he had, you know, that is enough for people to look at. And that was enough to get the conversation going. And I think what also came out of that administration were a lot of whistleblowers. And you know, I just think, regardless of it being him, that he was a conduit, he was the right man for the job. He was a person that was benevolent within himself to be able to safeguard our development from getting further enslaved by where this agenda could have gone if the particular surrender agreement was upheld completely and totally, with no covert plan being put into place. So again, planning is important, but not having a plan, well, then there is the plan. And what can we really plan for? So I don't know when he said that in his administration, but I think it was a very, very critical presidency. And everything since him and after these attempted assassinations were groomed leaders that were groomed by the three-letter organizations that, you know, started this whole, what we see, I don't want to name names, but we know who they are. They've been in office, and one attempted to run, and she's a female. Okay. That was a whole nother level of it all. And if we didn't get the warnings, and if he didn't put in place what he did, we would have been completely, you know, overtaken by this. And there's been enough windows of opportunity to be able to, you know, bust through this. And I know he made it easier. Could we have lived without it? Yeah, perhaps. I can't say, but I know that there were too many of these leaders making pacts with the dark side. Crowley, Churchill, and Hitler in the 40s and under Roosevelt's administration, and things that we don't even hear about, and what took place, you know, way long before, when the final Atlantean cataclysm took place, and how Crowley played a role in a lot of this manipulation and a lot of what's going on in these 13 families.
Aleister Crowley was the one who initiated the invite to the Grace. He was the one who opened up the whole portal to have them come in and start negotiating with our Earth's elite, beginning, of course, with the Nazis.
Right.
And then, later at, I guess, encompassed Churchill and then Truman, of course.
Right. So that stemming from the final cataclysm of Atlantis and how 13 families were considered just sort of covert, running
Yeah.
things behind the scenes, funding both sides of war, all the different movements, all the different like battles and genocides and holocausts throughout history, so that we wouldn't be able to switch each other on and we wouldn't be able to rebuild the 12-strand DNA. And that has been the most important thing targeted. And with many different scenarios being rolled out over different eras and different pivotal moments on the timeline. So then we look at like 9/11 and we look at, different really traumatizing.
Let's speak in code.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. I mean, oh God, people talk about that one so much, but I'm so sorry. Anyway, you might want to take this down after we're done and move it somewhere else. But we see all these other events take place to continue to hijack. That has never, ended. That still continues. So, it was incredibly important to have something to keep it from going, too far. It already feels like it's gone too far, but yeah, so it's been very interesting. And I know that I had a really strong agreement to come in and assist in bringing this information to light, and along with so many other individuals, and we're all doing it together. So I think it would be very difficult if Val hadn't come along, and supposedly he went rogue. So when we think about these other federations, I don't know what your thoughts are, but when people say he's an emissary for them, I don't know what to think about that, just because I know back then he had to go rogue.
Yeah. Well, from what I understand is that there was a huge infiltration by AI to the Federation. The Federation was infested with AI about four years ago. It's not the same anymore. So the defectors, actually, it all happened around the same time Enki supposedly came back to the solar system, right? Who is the progenitor of the Cabal families. I've always believed, the Brotherhood of the Snake, which pretty much was the reason why Atlantis collapsed, right? And then later Babylon rose because of his lineage. And Thoth corrupted the original teachings of the CDT plates, right? When he wrote the Emerald tablets, he corrupted. He took some of those teachings that were left by the original Orphan races, or what we call the original Guardians, and he twisted them.
Yep.
Of course, and then later, because Thoth was part of the elite. He was part of the reestablishment of what I call in my book the secret government, which I have actually been working to republish. It's mind blowing, Laura. But anyways, he was the one who restored the Leviathan bloodline, which is the human reptilian hybrid bloodline.
Right.
Back to the Earth.
Yeah, and that connects with the Orion group, the
Exactly.
Luciferian Covenant, which the Emerald Covenant, right, is to also offset. So I think also that rescuing the souls of Tara and all this repair work that has been going on for a long time too, has led up to that breakthrough in his administration to begin to bring that in more, because it was starting to really go to the wayside because of all the libraries that got burned, all the massacres being wiped out of those that held the true teachings.
And I think I was one of the originals who kind of called it for what it was when the Federation was infiltrated. But those that didn't defect it, those that did not align with AI, actually reorganized as the Galactic Alliance. So the positive races are now called the Galactic Alliance as of 2019. But before 2019, they were still somewhat of a centralized federation that included over 200,000 star systems that were, all trying to preserve their freedoms from the expanding Orion Draco Empire for millions of years. But again, there was that infiltration when Enki came back in 2019.
So what do you feel about the Galactic Federation of Worlds, though?
I feel that they've been disbanded. I feel that now they're the good guys, those that remained loyal to the one infinite creator and loyal to service to others, reorganized as the Galactic Alliance in similar fashion to the original Guardian interdimensional alliance known as the Guardian Alliance. No, what was it called? The original Emerald Order, the Covenant of Palador, that one, which was established, a million years ago. Over a million years ago, I think now. But,
right. And that's a part of the Emerald Covenant, isn't it? Before all that?
Yeah. The Covenant of Paladar was a pact that was made by the Ozurites, the original Seraphim before the Orphim,
Yep.
and the original Alliance, in order to protect and safeguard the 12th strand DNA Tyrannusian race, which was what we were, going back all the way to Ira and the original Earth known as Terra, in
Right.
dimensions 4, 5, and 6, before we were hijacked by the time travelers that went back in time and hijacked us. Actually, even before the Anunnaki, the first hijack took place about I think it was about 50 million years ago, because
Right.
the original human race was around since 600, close to 600 million years ago, the original Tyrannusian race. And
Right.
so I think the first hijack, even before the Anunnaki came into the scene. Hello,
Right.
are you?
Well, there's like the electrical wars, and the Paladorians are considered
Yeah,
the cloister races, and there was the electrical wars. There was, and then things had to be reseeded, and then that got attacked. I mean, there's Tiamat exploding, then there's Maldek exploding. That wasn't that more
that was a part of the infiltration, the
right,
AI infiltration. Even Mars, the entire collapse of the one was once a great civilization, collapsed because they imposed and they implemented the entire transhumanist thing. So we are the only pure race left on this planet, and that explains why all the ETs are wanting some of our DNA, because that's the only way they could recuperate their what they once lost when they decided to go rogue, unfortunately.
right. Oh, totally. Yep. And I mean, the messing with the planetary grid network, putting
Yeah,
things in reversal, harvesting tanks, and
yeah,
in these sacred sites, messing with the Albion Cathar part of the grid network that had the union of the masculine feminine and the Michael Mary lines. Um, yeah, and so because our DNA and our energy bodies and our chakras are connected to the planetary grids and the multidimensional cosmos, what they were able to mess with the grids through osmosis naturally kept us in these scrambled codes, so it wasn't enough just to put seals in or ethereal implants or fences, which helped us to protect us from going back too soon, um, but some of it wasn't for our benefit. um, there's been a lot of healing of the grid energy, and that was really to be able to create these engineered artificial timelines that are rooted way back. The last time we had an opportunity to advance ourselves, from what I heard, rebelled because they didn't want their genetics to be healed. So this is
mhm,
the amount of times that there was an opportunity and they chose against it, and to keep us, like you said, um, what they would have to rob or imitate, to keep themselves in a life cycle.
exactly. So in that regard, we could both agree that our genetics are the most purest so far in our galaxy, or perhaps even the whole universe, as far as like having the original codex of the 12 strands left, which are inactive. Of course, we're only using two, but even science has stated that there are 10 strands of DNA that are just they call it junk, of course, but I've always believed that that was our original angelic structure, before we were.
Totally. And that's what my book's about, actually. Yep, all that. Oh gosh, and that's where we're out of duality. That's where the integration of polarity, all these different levels of union, and how that begins to, switch it on. The reason it's scrambled is because we've been in this imbalance that, it actually isn't really, scrambled. I feel the rings of Saturn and how the artificial components of the moon and the manipulation of the planetary grid network has created sort of, what we can't seem to unravel until we do the repair work. We call in our fragmented aspects, we move out of that duality, we move into greater union with ourselves, and through frequency. If we look at frequency modulations and distortions and things that come through music, all the subliminals, all the things that have infiltrated the music we hear, is to keep things scrambled. If we get the right frequency, though, it begins to repair itself, or begins to rebuild. Um, and that's why we're so bombarded through technology and media and everything that is out there, is to keep it just in disarray, or keep us in disarray, so that we can't connect. And the warfare, the spiritual warfare, increases when we start to get in touch with that. And that's why
Mhm.
people feel so derailed in the awakening process. They're like, I thought I was doing everything right. And then all of a sudden you find, you've been completely derailed and slammed, and you just have to know that that's part of the process. It's not that you're doing anything wrong. Probably the opposite, because once they see that they're losing their grip, you become a target in a lot of ways. And that's why this particular window of history is so targeted with the final showdown of forces of the supposed manifestation of this N with that other initial O. That is the grand finale of everything, way back when, and that would be the grand finale that people would consent to, without realizing that this is where the galactic cores are aligned and where the geophysics of the planet is such that we are able to literally restore this, like we haven't been able to before. It hasn't been so easy.
Yes, it has. How many times they try to hijack the planetary grid system of this planet? I think multiple times. I think that this is not the first time. I think it's happened many of times. But again, the Guardian Alliance had to intervene always. And that's why they always sent, celestials like Krishna. Krishna was part of the Maharishi, cosmic Rishi, as to why he was blue Azurite. And that's why they sent other ancient guardians. I've always believed that the Hyperboreans were the original, protectors of this planet. The Hyperboreans going back to even before Atlantis.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. That was like the first root race, Polaris and Hyperborea, and oh my gosh. And when we look at like the Olympians and Titans and just all these different, events that have taken place,
which were all ETs, by the way. A lot of people, they were all ETs. I always make the correspondence between the gods of mythology and advanced extraterrestrials from other dimensions. They're one and the same, right? The Bible calls them angels. Yeah, a lot of people think that they're different. That's why I want to make that correlation, right?
Right. Gosh, yeah. So it's a lot to rebuild all of this, but I feel yeah, I mean, why would any race be wiped out? I mean, root races are supposed to get along, not be at war with each other, because this is part of how we rebuild. So they made it really, really difficult in these times. And then they're leveraging the historical traumas and resentments by all these different movements and all these different tactics being used through social media to, make it even more difficult. That people that this kind of wokeness stuff, those people think that they're really onto something, and it's a lot of what I talk about too. And we have to understand not just the planetary grid network, but the elements. I mean, we're talking about us getting over mind control. So is this planet of her elementals and her own circulatory system being overlaid, and and that the mother part of the Godhead has needed to come in and do corrections, and that whole Akamoth and Baphomet energy, and where that was utilized to create the Dark Mother reversals to be like generating also this feeding of beings and entities that require sacrifice. I mean, that's just like how much more twisted and out of balance can one get? So I'd love to take a huge vacation after this lifetime. What about you?
Yeah, same here. I would love to go to a planet for like at least a month and just do nothing and relax. But I've been working my butt off so much to get out my first book ever that really just details the entire history, the secret societies all the way back to 6,000 years ago, and the secret history of the Earth, which was a book that I actually put out in 2008. And believe it or not, Laura, in 2008, I actually mentioned I called them the White Knights. I didn't know of the term White Knights until, of course, Underground Patriot Street Fighter Charlie Ward came out in the last 5 years talking about the White Hats. But back then I used to call them the White Knights. And so I was talking about the, Sarah and how the White Knights have always been here as the guardians of the Republic. But, in a, not so much as a secret society, but in a loose knit, but still they're blocking every attempt from the cabal. Since the inception of our country, the cabal has been trying to destroy the Constitution. As you know, even the elements or the things that led to the Civil War were all orchestrated by, Jacob Schiff and the House of Rothschild and all of those people. But the whole point is, just I mean, I've been working hard to get this book out there, and it's almost ready. It's almost ready. Yeah.
Wow.
So tell us about your book.
Yeah, so it's called Awakening the Truth Frequency. And just sort of looking at some of the comments, and I'm not like wanting to pay, I mean, I'm not like taking any offense, but somebody's asking if I'm on meds. I know I'm talking fast. I've been not well. I just put my book out. I've been slammed with all sorts of energy. I haven't gotten good sleep. I just take herbs. And so, yeah, it's been a lot to release this book. And I know you know how that is. It's been something I have not wanted my family to know about. Not that they would be horrified, but I think it's quite triggering, and I just love them so much. And I'm not one to care what other people think, but yeah, it's been a lot. It's right here. It's called Awakening the Truth Frequency. And basically goes into a lot of galactic history, goes into artificial and organic timelines, a lot of Sophionic stuff, a lot about Sophia and Mother Earth and Dark Night of the Soul and going into the underworld, and a lot of different events that took place that we've been talking about, and what this ascension window is, things about the Venus transits, and obviously everything I could possibly expose about what really took place in Eisenhower's administration. And it's everything that I feel I was tasked to bring to light and on this journey. And yeah, it's got a lot of stuff. It's got 13 chapters, and it talks about in great detail my Mars recruitment, what exactly took place, how I was pre-targeted before birth, and how Eisenhower was told that a descendant would come to help bring about the truth that he warned us about. And they intercepted that information, and that's why they targeted me before birth and tried to guide me off a planet through putting a lot of plants and a lot of manipulative forces in my path, and how I broke free of that. So it's my personal story, and it's a lot about bigger picture stuff, and also about, the hope that you'll get activated, because it's really bringing the attention on you and what you're truly made of, and, just navigating the madness and the importance of us all, working with each other and love and respect and integrity. So you can get it on Amazon. I'm going to put it on my website, cosmicgaia.org. You can find all my social media on cosmicgaia.org. But right now you can get it through Amazon. But I'm going to have a feature where I can send you a signed copy, and I just add like the shipping. And so
Yeah, I'm also going to add your link. I'm also going to add her link here in the description at the end of the live today, so that way people could just access it faster. I love that you had 13 chapters, because that's like a very powerful number in terms of astrology. It's Ophiuchus, it's the mother goddess, it's the rebirth of balance in the feminine. Was that by coincidence, or was that?
Oh no, I was like, because I talk about Ophiuchus, the 13th sign, the ether element, how it relates to the mitochondrial DNA, and the clearing and healing of the nucleic acids of our DNA, which is also elemental. So 13 is just such a powerful number. I agree. And as I was completing it, I'm like, I'm going to make this 13 chapters. So at first it wasn't on purpose, but when I saw that I was on to my 13th chapter, I'm like, I'm going to leave it at 13, because that's the number.
Nice. I do have a question, a super chat from Riki Lee. They're saying, Laura and Ishmael, do you feel the Ascension timeline as a collective is speeding up because of the frequencies as a whole is increasing?
Do you feel the Ascension timeline as a collective is speeding up because of the frequency as a whole is increasing? Yes. I mean, Pluto just moved into Aquarius. Uranus is in Taurus, and Taurus is an earth sign, and Uranus is really highly activating. The Saturn squares that are like literally holding on to us for dear life as we're going through a major acceleration is, the extremes of what we're seeing with what they're attempting to do in steering, these narratives and putting out this propaganda and all this kind of stuff. The energies are increasing a lot. I feel to the point where a lot of people are having what you would call ascension symptoms, or really feeling it on a physical level. A lot is being, brought up to the surface to be purged and cleared. And it's really important that if you feel like you're losing it and it's like a lot, really embrace it. We've been really taught to think something's wrong, or we need to medicate it or give our power to somebody else. But, just know that we're going through powerful growth periods that cosmic and natural law and our true source energy parents, and how that is the planetary grid network and what we truly hold in our DNA that is beginning to get back online, or at least our consciousness is becoming aware of it, and the physical will catch up and take us through the processes that will help to advance our physical vessel with the help of all sorts of different tools and modalities that will really assist us. So I think a lot is going to come out of the woodworks. A lot is collapsing. A lot of rebuilding is happening. It's happening as much as it on the outside as it is, of course, on the inside. And of course, it all starts on the inside. So we're going to be witnessing a lot of different things, and we got to find neutrality to what we're witnessing, knowing that we're observing and we're witnessing. We're not a part of it. We are not enslaved by it. We're not being infiltrated by it, but we can lend a helping hand and begin to, provide resources for people that we feel are, getting all caught up in it, with unconditional love and understanding as best as we can. So we can bridge and assist as many as possible in these times. But what's really difficult for empaths and very compassionate people is you're afraid of leaving loved ones in the dust. You're afraid of what's going to happen to them if you, move on. And this is where I feel leaving these books behind are like the breadcrumbs and the guides that will eventually maybe make it into the right hands for those that need it most. So, but definitely a huge acceleration going on, big time.
I agree, sister. I totally agree. Let's see if we have any more questions for you or for me.
And my website's cosmicgaia.org, you guys.
I'm also going to put her website link in the description following the chat, just to let everyone know.
And yeah, about somebody's bringing up like fear and, anger and stuff. And just always know there's another side to it. Fear can also be caution and discernment. But where is it becoming an energy that's overtaking you and determining the decisions that you're making? Is it coming from fear? Can you turn that fear into caution and discernment and access something more in the face of that? If you feel anger, can you look at that fire and look at what it's really trying to tell you? Because that fire is transmutational, it's transformational, and it's your life force. It's connected to your passion. You don't want to sit here and let it eat at you. Let it guide you, because there might be something that you're meant to take action about that you might be angry at. And we don't want to be unconscious to the sensations and feelings that we're going through right now. Write it down, give it a voice, open yourself up to a dialogue with it, because it'll guide you to the higher expressions of all these different elemental energies, because we're elemental beings.
Exactly.
So
I totally agree.
Cool.
We're more than just elemental beings. We're actually the entire universe.
Oh, I know, right? It's true. Lauren Ismael, do you feel the sunshine lights? Okay.
Go ahead and take some questions if you want. Whichever you.
Yeah, the solar flash. What are your thoughts about that? I don't tend to speak on that much.
I believe that there are, archaeological and ancient records that talk about that event. It's a repeating event that happens every 12,000 years, as our solar system travels around Alcyon, the great central sun. And so it is an event that actually brings us back into the golden age. It's, from what I understand, as we go into the photon belt for about 2,000 years, and then as we exit the photon belt, but during that period, there's like the golden age. Everything's purified. There's no evil. And then as we leave the photon belt, we go into the dark age, and the dark age lasts about 10,000 years. Then we go once again to the photon belt. But like I mentioned in my book, Our Cosmic Origin, our solar system has experienced that 5,200 times, which corresponds to a greater cycle called the Galactic cycle. And what that is, it's the revolution of Alcyonia, along with Sirius B and our solar system going around the galactic core in a revolution of 226 million years. So that's also been documented and revealed by intergalactic councils, that we are no longer to experience a dark age, that this time the Earth is on a steady upward spiral as she moves up in the harmonic systems, beyond the Terra, Gaia, and Arimathena, to eventually fuse and become one again with Sophia.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't have put it better. And that's the best description I've heard. And yeah, so I don't know if you see any more questions. I know we definitely, covered a lot, and I just really appreciate you having me on, especially right as I've, put this book out. And Yeah.
Awesome. Well, do you want to answer any more questions before we end, or?
Sure. If there's one more.
Sure. If you want to take a pick, I'll let you pick.
Okay. Yes, I would say, the entering Pluto going into Aquarius is very much, I mean, when outer planets like Pluto make a shift like that, I mean, some would say the Aquarian age happened earlier. I feel we're much more in the beginnings and being taken more into the heart of it, even though Pluto's going to be in Aquarius for 20 years. I mean, I just feel like now we're really in it. I think it's all been kind of leading up to it. And I feel that we're not all at the same place at the same time, even if there is a shift in eras. Just like we can be in a different sort of dimensional frequency or vibration than others around us. I think some have really tapped into it sooner than others, but now it's really upon us in a much stronger way since Pluto moved into Aquarius. But that's just my interpretation. Do you want to say anything about that?
I agree with you. You're the astrology expert here. I'm more of a galactic expert, but I never really got into the whole science of astrology. But thank you for pointing that out. Now, we do have a super chat from Sunshine, who's actually giving you some love here, despite of what I guess the negative people on the chat are saying. She loves you, girl. She says.
Oh, that's so sweet. Oh yeah, no, the comments are fine. I'm not. It's nothing new to have people make their comments, and I'm not always at my best, but it doesn't stop me from just doing what I'm doing, and I appreciate just being able to talk about this kind of stuff. And yes, I mean, you don't really need to know astrology if you're tuned in. If you have the awareness that you have, astrology is no different than knowing the biology of a flower, but you can know the flower without knowing the biology. You can understand its essence. You can understand how it grows. You can understand its properties. You can understand it more than a biologist could even understand it. It's just dissecting it. Maybe, it's got its place. Like when people are stuck or they don't know where a certain energy is coming from, and you really want to, dig into some of the patternings, it's helpful. But as long as a person's intuitive, you're going to feel these alignments. You're going to be working with them. You don't really have to know it. But if you're on autopilot and if you're really looking to deprogram, it's sometimes helpful to see what's going on in a person's chart. I wouldn't say, I guess I'm an expert to a certain degree. I didn't plan on learning it and doing readings like I do. But I don't think it's a necessity, but it's a helpful tool if a person, especially, is in a rut. But as long as a person's intuitive and you're aligned with your truth, you're going to be feeling all these aspects, and you're going to get in touch with it in a completely different way. There's many, many different ways to, understand yourself, and that, comes naturally for you. So, and sometimes it gets too heady too. It's like all the terminologies and this and that. And it's important to just step back, but yeah, it can definitely be helpful.
And then Nature Boy is saying, Laura, just wanted to say thank you. And you have beautiful energy and wisdom. Hope you come back again. Love you too, Ishmael.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you so much. It's been really wonderful. And yeah.
How do you explain Sophia? Like somebody asked to explain Sophia. Like, who is Sophia?
Well, I'd say Sophia is like the mother part of the God source, but there's different levels of the Sophianic energy, right? And there are many different interpretations of all this. So I have my own way of kind of describing it that I feel is more in resonance with what Lisa Renee shares, a little bit different than what you would hear from maybe the Gnostics about the Aeon Sophia and stepping outside of the pleroma and birthing the demiurge. And I'm not saying that didn't happen, but when we look at Achamoth, when we look at also what Rudolf Steiner has said, that when this Luciferian rebellion happened, it sort of brought the Sophiana energy in order to create corrections, because everything was going too far, hybridization, manipulation, and it sort of yanked, the mother energy in to a certain degree. And some of it became the fallen goddess consciousness. And because of the exploded Tiamat and the imbalance that took place when Tiamat exploded, because it was a Sophionic planet. And Apsu and Tiamat were kind of holding, the balance of the masculine and feminine. When that exploded, when that blow from Nibiru or Marduk, ended up taking place, a part of her being that got sort of fragmented had to have an intervention from herself to be able to create corrections, because part of that morphing into like the elemental kingdom or the 2D started to be harnessed and used by the darker forces or the fallen ones to leverage that energy and really target that energy in a lot of ways. So when we look at the path of the divine feminine, or that energy, when we look at the path of what we see in mythology, there's always this maiden that gets abducted into the underworld, or goes through the 7 gates of hell, or just goes into the underworld, which is really like the creative cauldron of creation, which is really the mother womb that has had like, a force within it that is, holding domain and holding, some kind of power or influence. And the initiation would be to face that energy, to go on that journey, to then reunite with the mother, which would be Demeter, or, returning back to Earth, which is very much what the cycles and seasons and everything about Mother Earth is sort of made of. These sort of cycles, maiden, mother, crone, the triple goddess kind of energy. So I would say, source mother, but when that planet exploded and these events took place, a part of her being came in, and through the energy of Venus, which that archetype is connected with, created the Venus transits in order to do the repair work, to lift the inversions around so that it could gather up all its fragments and bring it back into wholeness, which is what we're doing, because she put a spark in all of us. And I feel the Oraphim was created almost like that spark of, holding, all the energies of the founder flames in order to be able to hold some sort of anchoring of how this energy would return. And that those individuals that are aware of that are a part of the planetary grid healing, are a part of being called to do great missions like yourself, and that it would assist in the healing of these fragmented aspects. So Mother Earth, in a way, I feel is like the unconditional love of the mother that has created a home here for us, but it's been invaded and taken over because we were a part of those galactic wars, and we lost our full DNA capacity. So along with the mother energy repairing herself and being on this journey, our soul is on that journey as well. And that is why, this divine template exists within us. And that is what the earth is returning to, is the fullness of her Sophionic body. But everything up until then has been based in corrections, based in gathering the fragments, and all about recovering from where that has been harnessed and used to create archonic parasitic forms, using her womb energy in a way that she did not want or consent to. And I know that's a lot, and I'm sure people are like, what in the F? But if you read my book, I don't know. There's a lot, just saying this or that, but I really resonate with what Lisa Renee says, and the Christ energy, and even if we look at the pleroma, there's the Barbalo, there's the Aeon Sophia, then there's the Akamoth, there's the Pistis Sophia. It's just a lot of Mother Earth, and a lot of this creation story is very much about this planetary system being a holder of all the different stargates that link us to the rest of the 15-dimensional time matrix, and that these stargates being compromised and being cleared are helping us to return to the fullness of our multidimensional self that connects to these star systems, where the pyramid technology and the pyramids used to directly align with, that much higher civilizations and advanced beings used to dwell this planet, as we know. And it's the healing of the mother principle that reunites with the true father that will be a huge part of this. And how that ignites our true divine template is when we recognize this and begin to move away from the false parent and false partner inverted system that does not want us to awaken to this. I did my best with that one.
Oh my God, you really broke it down. Love it, love it. Now we're going to take one last super chat. This is just saying, greetings, Laura. When will you do a live with Rising Phoenix, Aurora, Magenta Pixie, and Ishmael together? That'd be a nice roundtable.
Oh, that would be really fun. So that's definitely something we could talk about doing. So you just planted the seed for that.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Laura, it is an honor and pleasure to have you here. You really dropped a lot of wisdom, and I believe that the Galactic Jedis are going to be talking about this for days. And we would love to have you back. Probably in a month if you're up for it.
Oh,
Around.
that's so cool. Thank you. I'm so thrilled. It's really been amazing. And we have you on the 11th on the Rebel Collective. I look forward to that.
Oh yes, that's when you interview me, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, for sure.
Cool. Well, I'm going to go ahead and put your description for your website and anything else, all your links where people could actually order your book, reach out to you. And also, again, Galactic Jedis, my website is out. It's under ourcosmicorigin.com. And I'm only going to take 20 students this month because I want to make it intimate and personal as I break down the cosmic structure and much more. So, with that in mind, I hope you guys all have a beautiful day. May the God force be with each and every single one of you always.
Awesome. Bye, everybody. Check out the homepage. I've got an online event coming up on March 9th. It's 3 hours long, so definitely, I'm updating it right now. Thanks,
All right,
Ismael.
give me the link and I'll throw it on here as well.
Okay, sweet. Awesome.
All
All right,
right, bye.
bye.